What's up, Resolve? How are y'all? I see we already have some fans for my smoking hot wife up here. This, for those who don't know, she said don't make her blush as I mentioned that she's smoking hot. This is Jamie, my wife. If you haven't met me, my name is Bradley Hamilton. I'm the student pastor here, and we just want to take a little bit of your time. Wasn't Friendsgiving amazing? What was your favorite dish? Sounds like a pretty mixed review. I think the middle school guys like the cookies the most. Is that the consensus I got? Well, hey guys, we just want to take a few moments. We're going to have just a little bit of time together, and then we're going to send you guys out of here. But we want to take just a moment, especially for those of you who don't know anything about Resolve. You were invited by a friend, and they said, come to this crazy thing, and you did not know what you were showing up to. This doesn't even look like a church maybe to you. I don't know where you came from, what your view of religion is, where you've been in the past, other churches that you've been invited to. But I just want to let you know that this is a safe place for you. That we do all of this for you. Our heart and our vision behind everything we do here at Resolve is to create this moment in the week where you can have some time to disconnect, to forget about chores and homework and everyone else who's on your case, and just have a place where you can come and hang out with your friends, hang out with your leaders, be invested in spiritually, ask questions about who this Jesus guy is and what is Christianity. And that's a lot of what we want to talk about. And so tonight, we want to talk about a quick topic that for us has been one that, so we've been married a little over a year now, and thank you. And so this topic for us, we've been talking about now and later, this idea of what you do now matters later, and we've been looking at wisdom in Scripture, and what does it mean to live a wise life, and we're so excited to talk on this particular topic because this word that we're going to talk around is really been one that for our marriage a year in, we have learned a ton about. It's one of those pieces that for our marriage has been so essential. And I want to say this, for every relationship in your life, I think that what we're going to talk about tonight with your parents, with your siblings, with your friends, with your teachers, I think that this word, if we can really grab hold of it, if we can learn how to develop what we're going to talk about tonight, I believe it will transform your relationships for the best. In fact, I believe some of your relationships that you're here tonight and you're going, no, Bradley, you don't understand this relationship. No, you don't see what happened here. I think that if you can develop what we're going to talk about, you will see that relationship change. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is this idea of patience. This idea of patience. So we've had to learn this a lot in our marriage. What's some of the ways we've had to learn patience over the last year?
Okay, so my first one is I like to kind of talk things through as they happen throughout the day so I can get home and relax. And one way I've had to learn to be patient is Bradley doesn't do that. So Bradley likes to, eat dinner, get cozy, we're laying in bed watching TV, and then he'll hit pause on whatever show we're watching. And then he will tell me everything that happened in his day, which is fine, but what happens for me is then I start thinking about everything he said and everything that happened in my day, and I can't fall asleep. And then I look over and he's like snoring, already asleep 5 minutes ago. So.
Any other nighttime processors? Like you lay in bed and that's when you're like, okay, now I need to process all of this, right? See, that's just me, but it's something that we're so different on, so we've had to learn that. Okay, a way that I've had to learn patience. I don't know if you know this, but if Jamie has her cell phone on her, that is a very rare sight. And so about 100 million times a day, we get the question of, wait, where's my phone? And so we have to go looking through everything, and there's not necessarily a place for that, or the remote, or just about anything. But see, anyone like me, you have a place for everything. Anyone like that? You know, like, oh, where are my keys? It's in the key spot. Like, that's just where they go, is the key spot. And so we're very different on that, so.
Okay, so I have another one. So if you're a girl and you've lived with a boy, your dad, your brother, you'll probably relate to me on this. You go to bed, you wake up in the middle of the night or early in the morning, you have to go to the bathroom. So you walk into the bathroom, you don't want to turn the light on because then it's going to just like really hurt your eyes. So you just go and you sit and you splash into the toilet because someone left the toilet seat up, right? So I do put it down after I've already sat in the toilet water.
That doesn't happen. I don't know what she's talking about. I always put the toilet seat down. That's not a thing. No, see, you laugh, but to be honest, a lot of the things that we have fought about over this first year start off as those little tiny annoyances. And if you think about your relationships with your family, with your friends, you probably have a lot of the same stories. It's those small things, let's not until the message is over, cool? It's those small things that eventually turn into big things that you will find you getting impatient over, that kind of grows in your heart. And then after a while, maybe you blow up at your mom or you blow up at your sibling, and it was over something so small. And then your relationship gets to a place to where you're just going, how did it get here? That's not where I wanted it to be. And so what I want to talk about tonight is, what does it look like to develop patience? Because I believe if we can put patience into our relationships, then it will save so many of the heartache and the regret and the hardship that we often face when it comes to our relationships. Cool? So we've been in the book of Proverbs. If you have your Bibles, you want to go turn there, open up your phone. We're going to be in Proverbs chapter 19. And we've been looking at the book of Proverbs because it was written by a guy named Solomon, who's the wisest man to ever live. So when it came to wisdom, this is a guy who we want to read about. But also, especially when it comes to patience, he had a massive family. And so he's someone who probably understood what it looked like to be patient with siblings, to be patient with the people around you. And so here's what he says in Proverbs 19:11. It says, a person's wisdom, it yields patience. So a wise person, you're going to build patience in your life. And then he says this, it is to one's glory to overlook an offense. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense. And that's kind of a weird term, but here's what he's saying. That when you overlook an offense, when you can move past the little things and be patient with the relationships in your life, he says it's to your glory, which is another way of saying it's to your best self. It's to your best. So if you can overlook offenses in the relationships around you, here's what this means. It means your relationships are going to be their best. That they are going to thrive. They are going to be what they're meant to be. When siblings can look past offenses, they're going to be the siblings that God created them to be. When child and parent can look past the little offenses, they're going to be the parent and the child that God has created them to be. When you and your friends can look past the little offenses that so often wreck our friendships, you can have the type of friendship that God has created you to have. And so we have to start looking past these small offenses and learn how to develop patience, Solomon says, in order for our relationships to thrive. But here's the other piece. You're also at your best self. It's best for you. Because you probably know this. A lot of times you hold on to something and it just tears you apart and you can't be around that person. There's all these issues. And oftentimes you holding on to that is doing way more damage to you than them. They've moved on. They've forgotten about it. Sometimes they don't even know that it happened. But what we do, if we can hold on to these offenses, they will actually begin to destroy us, and you are not being your best self. So Solomon says this isn't what they're supposed to look like. And so I want to give you three things. Three things that you can do this week to start developing patience in your life. And I promise you, if you will write these down, if you will take a picture of the screen, these three things you watch as soon as you walk out of these doors tonight. We've been joking because since we've written this, we've been saying them to each other because you'll catch things happening. And these three things I think will save some conflict in your life. Cool? So what's the first one, babe?
Okay, so the first one is pause. So in the moment when you feel offended, to have patience, first you have to pause. So for me, when I sit down into the toilet water and I want to fuss at Bradley, I pause and I think about, he was raised this way. He was raised to put the toilet seat up so that he didn't pee on the seat, right?
It's service. It's serving.
So the first thing is just pause, take a deep breath, think before you respond in anger.
And it's, it's a funny example, but what she's pointing to is actually super important. That you're not just pausing, but she said you also got to think about the other person. That carries us to the second point, is that we have to choose to believe the best. Choose to believe the best in the people around you. See, here's our default, is we just assume the worst. Your parents say you can't go to something and they don't care about my happiness. They don't like me. Like we shame them and put the worst motives on them when you've probably discovered that that's not the case. They're not just trying to make a terrible life for you. They're maybe trying to protect you. Maybe they have a lot going on their plate and they know that they're trying to pay the bills and get all the kids to the right places at the right time, and they know the schedule. And so for you, they're making a decision that's best for you. And so what if when your parents come at you with something that you don't like, if you were to pause and then believe the best in them? What about that friend who didn't invite you to something and you automatically assume they hate me, they're a mean person, I can't believe they would do that, when maybe they just forgot. Maybe they didn't include you in the group text. Maybe they didn't include you in the group me, but it's not something about their heart. What if we began to believe the best in the people around us?
Yeah, so one way that I'll say not my proudest moment, or one thing I do that's probably not the most patient, is if I'm texting someone. So if you say text your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your friend, your best friend, whatever, you're waiting on their response. So sometimes Bradley will be at work and I'll text him or text him a question and I'm like, okay, like why is he not answering me? Like what's he doing? Does he not want to talk to me? Like what's taking so long, right? And so instead of doing that, what I should do is step back and say, hey, he's at work. He's working hard to provide for our family, and that would be thinking the best of him.
And who hasn't done that? Right? Have you ever texted someone and you're like, man, I can't believe they haven't answered, and then they reply with something like really important they were doing and you feel so horrible, right? We just have this default in us to believe the worst in people around us. And what if you were someone who believed the best? Think of it this way too. Wouldn't you want people to believe the best of you? Wouldn't, when you didn't measure up or when you didn't do something perfectly or when you made a mistake, what if your friend said, you know what, I know his heart, I'm sure that wasn't it, I'm going to continue to believe the best in him? Isn't that the kind of person that you want to be to other people? So we have to pause, we have to choose to believe the best. And the third, this is super important, especially if you don't know someone as well. So this isn't for like your family or someone close to you, but this is going to be huge for those in your school. Those people who maybe even are intentionally rude or intentionally mean and offend you on purpose. This could apply to your teachers or the people around you. Or it can apply to that person at school that you're just like, why do they keep doing the things that they're doing? I am so impatient with them. The third thing is that we have to learn their story. We have to learn their story. Because here's the truth. We all have a story. In fact, everything that everyone does makes sense to them. Did you follow that? Everything that someone does to them, it makes complete sense. So you're going, that person's an idiot. Why would they ever do that? But to them, that made total sense. Because we all have a past, we all have a story, we all have a system that we operate in. And so sometimes what you're impatient with is actually just how someone is wired, or it's what's going on in their life and they're acting out of that. Baby, you had a story like that happen just this past week.
Yeah, so we've told a lot of funny stories. This one's a little bit more serious. But this past week I was at work, and I was working with a lady, and I'm a nurse, and she was just not really acting herself, but she was just like, I was taking care of my patients, and then she kept asking me to like do stuff she should have been doing, and I was getting frustrated because I was like, I'm already trying to like work super hard and get everything I need to get done for my patients, and then I'm trying to do all these things for her, and I was just like run down, and I was just getting frustrated. I was kind of like, well, why are you sitting there? Like, can't you go do it? But I didn't say anything. I just did it. But in my heart, I was pretty frustrated. So when I took my lunch break, and I shouldn't have done this, but I was just venting and I was complaining. And I told my best friend, I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm having to do like double the work today because this lady's just not stepping up. And she was like, Jamie, just so you know, she actually just got the diagnosis of cancer. And it just really convicted me because I wasn't thinking the best in her. I wasn't pausing and thinking I shouldn't have been talking to that friend, and I didn't know her story. And if I would have, I wouldn't have been frustrated. I wouldn't have been impatient with her.
And think about the people that you walk past in the hallways. You don't know what that bully is going through at home. You don't know what that mean girl, what happened to her 5 years ago. You don't know the hurt and the weight that some people are carrying. And so a lot of times you might have heard this phrase, hurt people hurt people. And the reality is we're all broken, messy, hurting people. And so depending on what your hurt is, you're going to hurt people too. It's just the truth. And what's beautiful about what Jesus does for his church, for Christians, for his people, is to say, hey, here's a group of broken, hurting people trying to do life together. And I'm going to cover their brokenness. I'm going to cover their hurt. See, the great thing about Jesus is that he is so patient with us. He doesn't wait for you to mess up and just go, well, done with her. Nope, spite them out of here. Like, that's it. No, that's not God. And God is a God of grace and of love and of countless second chances. And he continues to believe the best in you no matter how many times you mess up. And for some, maybe this is your first time being in a church environment where you've heard that kind of message. In fact, you've heard that Jesus is looking down on you and mad at you for X, Y, and Z or what happened last week. And can I just tell you that God is not some God who's far off looking at you and judging you and condemning you, that God is a God who is close. He is with you. He is in your situation. He has seen your failures, your mistakes, and your brokenness, and he loves you in spite of it. He loves you so much that he paid the price for you. And just by accepting Jesus into your life, he covers your brokenness, he covers your messiness, and then he says, come walk in a life with me as broken people. Lean on each other, lean on Christ to fulfill that brokenness, and let's walk and do this life together. And so the truth is, for some of you, you're feeling convicted right now because you haven't had the right heart with people. You've been really impatient with some people that you actually need to stop and talk to them. You need to learn their story. You need to hear about what's going on in their life and ask some questions because you might be surprised by what you find that some of the meanest, some of the rudest, they're actually some of the most hurting. And maybe, just maybe, God's called you to enter into a spot like that and to be Jesus to them. Because they're looking around going, I don't see that in anyone, and you could be the agent that God uses to help broken people. So what do we do about this? What's our takeaway?
Yeah, so the thing about patience is it doesn't just happen overnight. It's something you have to practice. And the more you practice it and you actually do these 3 things that we've been talking about tonight, you'll see the transformation in your heart, and that will help you develop patience into a habit. But just the main thing is that we have to practice it to become patient people and to become wise people. It's not something you can just decide tonight to do and then be perfect at it.
So good. So let's commit to that together. Let's begin to practice patience with one another, with your small group. And then when you go home tonight, and practice that with your parents, because here's what that's going to happen. Here's how the enemy loves to work. The thing that you start to feel God move in your heart about, that is the thing you will be hit by when you get home. It just is. And so maybe even on the way out to the parking lot, your parents going to jump at you because you were a minute late, or you were, still grabbing a Coke, or you had too much sugar, middle school guys. And maybe they're going to be on your case about something, and you will have an opportunity in the parking lot to practice these 3 things and go, you know what? I'm not going to react. I'm going to pause. You know what? I'm going to believe the best in them. They have things to do. They have an agenda. They have work early. They're trying to help me and protect me, and they're trying to get me home on time. Maybe you need to practice that today. And so how we're going to end tonight is we're actually just going to start. And so right now, you've probably been thinking about that one person. That one person who you have just been so impatient with. Maybe it's someone on your team. Maybe it's someone in your house. Maybe it's someone in your neighborhood or in your classroom. But there is that person that you have just been so impatient with. And you even showed up tonight going, I just cannot stand to be around that person. They're here even, and I just wish I wasn't around them. I don't know who this person is for you. But what I'd like to do is to start by praying for them. So here's what we're going to do. You can go ahead and bow your heads, close your eyes, get rid of the distractions around you. We'll get you out of here on perfect time to be out there. But for just a moment, would you think about that person? And I want you to pray for them, but I don't just want you to pray for them. I want you to pray nice things about them. I want you to pray that God would show them how loved they are. I want you to pray for their day tomorrow, their night tonight. And so we're just going to take a couple minutes. Couple minutes, it'll be awkward. We'll sit in silence, but don't focus on that. Focus on talking to God and pray for that person. I'll close this out in just a moment. God, we thank you that you have patience with us. We thank you that we mess up time and time again. We have so many flaws. We are so broken. We are so messy. And yet you run in every single time to show us how loved we are. God, I thank you that we can come alongside our brothers, our sisters. And it's okay that we're broken. We're going to keep chasing after you. God, I thank you for a place like this. I pray that you help us leave this room, this environment, and step into our world, step into our lives, and to begin to practice patience. God, we want our relationships to be at their best. We want to be at our best. And so, God, help us develop that. Help us to pause. Help us to believe the best, and help us to learn people's stories. God, we thank you. We thank you for tonight. We thank you for amazing mac and cheese and fun games and the beautiful words from a hot wife. God, we just thank you for everything tonight. It's in your name I pray. Amen.